Have you ever been in that classic situation where you defeat the big bad and you finally get that quest item that's going to allow you to do something, right? Yeah, you're supposed to take it to. Who was it again? What city do they live in? Likely, this is caused by bad note taking, and in this video, we're going to discuss what you can do to take better notes. Firstly, your notes should be concise and be organized. Your notes should only include the information that you need to refer to later on. There's no point in even writing down a character's name if it's within a paragraph of lore that you're never going to be able to find later. Instead, if you are in Phandalin and meet the innkeeper named Frank and he wants you to deliver a letter, you could write that down as Phandalin, innkeeper, Frank, wants letter delivered to whoever. Now, when you look through all your notes with all the information you've gathered, it's really easy to find everything that you're looking for. Generally, I recommend putting a character's occupation before their name, because generally people find it easier to remember what someone did rather than their name. It's just how we remember things. You'll remember that the innkeeper wants a note delivered. You're not going to remember that Frank wants a note delivered. As well, after a session, you should take your session notes and transfer them into more concise notes. For example, if Phandalin's a city in your world, you put Phandalin as a town note sheet, and then you put all of the characters you've met who are from Phandalin in there. Now, if you ever leave Phandalin and come back, you know who all the characters who should be there are because you have an entire sheet with all the NPCs there. If you're not interested in that and you want to add more flavor to your notes, writing in character might be what works best for you. I first started doing this with one of my wizard characters. Their backstory is that they're trying to get their doctorate in studies of the Feywild. The game took place in the Feywild. So all of my notes were his actual journals studying and logging everything he saw in the Feywild. And after I did that, I realized how much it helped me with the roleplay. First of all, it helped prevent metagaming because I was only writing down the information that I knew my character would have gotten. If someone else learned something and technically he wasn't there, well, unless we discuss him learning about it later, he doesn't have that. Secondly, it's a really good roleplay exercise. Now, personally, I feel very comfortable improving and roleplaying in front of friends. However, I know a lot of people who don't feel comfortable doing that. This would actually be a really good exercise for them because you don't have to deal with the pressure of other people seeing what you're doing. You can go as deep into roleplay as you feel comfortable without the judgment of anyone else around you. Another potentially fun, but also potentially scary thing, depending if you're the type of person I just described, is that writing notes in character also meant that my notes were a thing that existed in the world. If we met something that was new, I would describe, I'm going to pull out my notebook and write that down. During long rests, I would describe people wake up and I'm already awake, writing in my notebook. Sometimes if we want to refer to a piece of information and I refer to it in my notes, I describe my wizard actually going through his notes and looking for that piece of information. Now, that can be scary for people who are using this as a roleplay exercise because they're too scared to improv in front of a bunch of people, because if these notes are a part of the world, it means that these are something that another player could potentially steal and then read through all your notes, which is an idea which I think would be really funny now, and I might try to incorporate that into the next time I play that wizard. Also remember that you need to ask your DM questions about the world, even if they're just clarifying things that the DM has already said. Asking questions ensures that your notes remain accurate. The amount of times I've peeked through my players' notes and I've seen names that I didn't recognize, only to slowly realize that these are what my players thought characters' names were spelled, even though they're spelled completely differently. It would have been nice if someone had just asked me how to spell Auric, so I don't get Auric, Auric, or Auric. And it's not just misspellings either. Sometimes as a DM, I explain things poorly, or I realize I want to retcon something, or I simply misspeak and get things wrong. And that's okay, we're all humans, and sometimes I need to be corrected. However, I'll never know that I actually needed to be corrected until someone has confirmed things that I've said to them. Sometimes all this writing isn't going to be enough to help you remember or organize. A lot of people just see lines of text as lines of text and struggle to go through it to find the information that they need. If you're one of these people, a good idea is to use highlighting and shapes to help identify quickly what you're looking for in your notes. You could have a color for people who are your allies and a color for people who are your enemies. You can have a shape for all the people who owe you a favor and a shape for all the people who you've killed loved ones of. I'm not going to suggest any particular design for shapes and colors and what they should all mean, because it's very dependent on the type of campaign that you're playing in and how your brain works. All I can say is don't be afraid to experiment and don't be afraid to have to redo your notes because your original method wasn't working to help you remember. Just make sure that you either include a legend or you don't forget to actually go back and fix your notes, or else each color is going to mean a different thing depending on what note you're on, and your referencing at that point is just going to be totally off and make things probably even harder to find. Now, assuming that other players are taking notes, it's a good idea to go between sessions and ask for them to look over your notes and ask to look over their notes. Different people catch on to different things, and sometimes you'll realize they've noted something very important that you didn't even catch was said during the session. If you can't get together as players between games to look over notes, perhaps share a Google Doc where you place notes together. I do warn, however, I have seen a tendency with these Google Docs to essentially be run by one player and the rest of the party mooches off of the one who makes the best notes. But you might not see that as a bad thing because the one who's really bad at taking notes actually has access to notes for the game. Now, if you're going this route, consider giving your DM access to these notes. It'd be very useful to your DM for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, if they make mistakes or get something wrong or want to retcon something, they can see what you put down to know that they made that mistake. It's also good for them to see what their players see as important. What you put down in your notes actually says a lot about what parts of the game you're engaging in and what parts of the game you're zoning out. If your story is a mystery, your DM gets to see your notes and let them understand what you understand and what you've been able to pick up on and what clues you've missed and might need to be re-explored. And finally, the most important step to creating good notes is to actually use them. Committing to actually using your notes during and after games will help you learn quickly about the note-taking style that works best for you, and will help build your skills in note-taking in general. Although D&D is a pen and paper game, D&D players tend to be those that are the least organized people, and the people that were never great at taking notes in high school. I would know, because I was that person. Remember that learning any number of note-taking methods, and some not working and some working, is all part of the process. But taking good notes is so beneficial to playing D&D. It helps keep the pace and keep sessions moving after weeks-long breaks and people try to remember what they're supposed to be doing. It helps with character motivation, understanding the information that your character's actually been given, and it helps your DM develop their game based off of how you respond to it. And that's going to end this video right here. You can click the subscribe button to get updated on when new videos like this come out. I upload DM tip videos on Thursdays and Roll for Reddit videos on Mondays, so there's a variety of content on my channel. Next week, I'm thinking the video is going to be about the discrepancy between the amount of players and the amount of dungeon masters in D&D, so that's something that you can look forward to in the future. Thank you so much for watching. This is the end of the video.